she made a demand that reportedly left the entire royal family absolutely stunned. After spending months in complete hiding, stripped of her title, abandoned by the organizations she built with her own hands, and found named in the documents that changed everything, the former Duchess of York is now insisting on something she refuses to negotiate on: a private sit-down meeting with King Charles himself. And she is not backing down from that position. What follows is the extraordinary story of how Sarah Ferguson transformed from being a trusted royal insider to becoming a complete outcast from the institution that once embraced her, and why her latest move is being described by those close to the situation as either the thing that rescues her reputation entirely or destroys whatever fragments of goodwill she has managed to preserve. To understand how we got here, we need to trace back to a single date that changed everything: January 30th, 2026, when the United States Department of Justice made the unprecedented decision to release millions of pages of documents from the Epstein investigation. Buried deep within those millions of pages were private emails that completely shattered whatever remained of Sarah Ferguson's carefully constructed and managed public image. These emails revealed a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein that was far closer and more affectionate than anyone outside her inner circle ever knew existed, and remarkably, this relationship continued well after his conviction in 2008. One email from January 2010 contained language that shocked investigators and journalists alike. In it, she called him a legend and told him plainly that she was entirely at his service. Another email from August 29 thanked him for being the brother she had always wished for, words that suggested an emotional intimacy that contradicted everything she had said publicly. Even more damaging, while Epstein sat behind bars serving his sentence, she continued to refer to him privately as her spectacular and special friend, and she told him that she was proud of him, proud of a man serving time for his crimes, and that is where the real disaster began. When CNN reporters conducted a detailed review of those released files, they uncovered something absolutely contradictory that made the situation far worse than anyone initially realized. The public version of Sarah Ferguson, the one presented to journalists and cameras, had publicly criticized Epstein and worked to distance herself from him. But in her private correspondence, the emails painted an entirely different picture. She had privately apologized to him for those very public criticisms, expressing remorse about having spoken against him at all. The woman the public saw condemning him was the same woman who privately begged his forgiveness for saying anything negative about him. Beyond that contradiction, the correspondence also revealed that she had been seeking financial help from him, asking to borrow money on multiple occasions, and even requesting that he consider employing her as his house assistant. The speed of what happened next was absolutely breathtaking. Within just days of the files going public, Sarah's Trust, the charity organization she had founded during the COVID pandemic to provide humanitarian aid, announced its closure for the foreseeable future. This was not a small charitable operation. The trust had worked with over 60 partner organizations across more than 20 countries, delivering more than 150,000 aid parcels throughout the pandemic, helping families when they needed it most. All of that work, all of that legacy, completely wiped out in a matter of days. The domino effect accelerated rapidly. By mid-February, 6 separate companies where Ferguson served as sole director, all filed to be struck off the company's house register within a compressed 72-hour window. These companies included Fergie's Farm, La Luna Investments, Sulamoon, Philanthropreneur, Planet Partners Productions, and Sphenix Events. While none of them carried major public profiles, the sheer speed and coordination of these closures sent a powerful message about how toxic her position had become, as if those around her in business were racing to sever any visible connection to her name. Around that same period, she made a deliberate move to officially change her name on every company filing, shifting from Sarah Duchess of York to simply Sarah Margaret Ferguson, erasing the royal designation from every legal document. But the closures of those companies barely scratched the surface of what was happening to her. Charities had already begun cutting their ties to her months before the documents went public, anticipating the storm that was coming. In September 2025, after earlier Epstein-related emails first surfaced, a teenage cancer trust, and a children's hospice called Julia's House both severed their formal associations with her. Then came October 2025, when Andrew lost his dukedom, and with that single act, Ferguson lost her courtesy royal divorcee title entirely. She was no longer the Duchess. That honorific vanished completely, and in its place stood simply Sarah Ferguson, a woman without title or position. The pace of her isolation quickened in early February 2026, when King Charles made a dramatic decision to evict both her and Andrew from Royal Lodge, the sprawling 30-room Windsor estate where they had lived together continuously since 2008, despite having divorced back in 1996. Andrew was relocated to Sandringham, more than 100 miles away from the rest of the royal family in Windsor and London. But Ferguson's destination, her new location, remained a complete mystery for months. The palace would not say where she had gone. Her friends would not confirm her location. She simply disappeared from public view. International pressure arrived on March 27, 2026, when Democratic Congressman Suha Subramaniam sent a formal letter to her legal representatives, requesting that Ferguson provide information to the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability. That letter explicitly cited her social and business ties to Epstein and gave her a strict 2-week deadline to respond with answers. Her response, according to those close to her, was blunt and unambiguous. She reportedly told those around her that she would never set foot in America again, that she refused to engage with the congressional request. While no legal mechanism exists to compel her testimony while she remains safely in Europe, the request itself added yet another layer of crisis to a situation that was already completely overwhelming. And then came what many described as the final humiliation, what was left of her connection to the very city she had been named after. On March 31, 2026, York City Council voted unanimously to strip Ferguson of the freedom of the city of York, an honor she had held since 1987. Royal expert Hilary Fordwich observed that the council debate lasted less than 10 minutes total, and described it as totally unheard of in her experience. It was not a lengthy deliberation, not a controversial vote. It was swift and decisive, and unanimous. Andrew had already lost that same honor back in 2022, which meant that neither of them maintained any remaining connection to the city whose name they carried. For 213 days, Sarah Ferguson completely disappeared from public view. That silence finally ended on April 16th, when she was spotted at a luxury wellness resort in Altesee near Salzburg, Austria. Reports indicated the chalet was costing around £2,000 per night, though some sources claim she was actually living in the staff quarters to maintain a lower profile and avoid detection by other guests. According to those familiar with her stay at the resort, she rarely left her room, never once stepped onto the balcony despite the beautiful lake views it offered, and completely avoided the resort's walking trails and tennis courts and other public areas. But once her location leaked to the press, sources described her emotional state as deeply distraught. She began desperately searching for a new location where she could disappear completely, somewhere more secure where she would not be found again. That is when reports of her demand to King Charles surfaced in the media. Sources speaking to Closer magazine revealed the details of her request. Ferguson apparently feels completely abandoned by the royal family, cast aside without any explanation or opportunity to defend herself. She believes she deserves a private sit-down meeting with Charles, so that she can clear the air and present her version of events in her own words. Years of loyalty and support during the family's own various crises, she reportedly argued to those around her, had earned her the right to at least be heard, to sit across from the king and explain herself. But King Charles had a very different view of the situation. Charles was choosing absolute silence. He reportedly refused to meet with her, afraid that anything he told Ferguson privately would inevitably become public knowledge, especially since she is said to be actively exploring media deals that could include a television documentary and a future book deal. One source captured the entire palace mood in a single devastating word, calling her totally radioactive and adding that no one, absolutely no one, wants to go anywhere near her. What made the entire situation even more volatile and dangerous was a reported financial offer that was sitting on the table, a concrete proposal of $2,445,000 from an American journalist for a tell-all interview. An insider claimed that Ferguson had finally come out of shock and was now burning with fury at what had happened to her life, that she desperately wanted to tell her side of the story, and that she was going to become a real thorn in the crown. But despite that offer, despite her isolation, despite her anger, Ferguson had still declined to speak publicly. She turned down an approach from BBC Newsnight along with multiple other interview requests from major media outlets. PR specialist Kayleigh Cornelius warned publicly that attempting a tell-all could easily backfire catastrophically, pointing to Andrew's disastrous 2019 Newsnight appearance as the perfect cautionary example. Royal commentator Jenny Bond put it even more directly, saying that Ferguson's daughters would be in complete despair if she decided to go ahead with any public interview, and that concern appears to be the one thing holding Ferguson back, her daughters Beatrice and Eugenie. Sources close to her say she fears that any public interview could pull them into the kind of unwanted attention and scrutiny that they are desperately trying to avoid for themselves and for their own families. So here is where things stand right now, at this exact moment. Sarah Ferguson is hiding somewhere in the Austrian Alps, completely cut off from the royal family, stripped of every title and honor that once defined her position, dropped by charities that she built herself, with Congress formally calling for her testimony, and millions of dollars dangling in front of her for a tell-all interview that she still has not agreed to give. She keeps demanding a meeting with a king who will not answer her calls or respond to her requests. And if she keeps pushing, if she keeps demanding that meeting, sources warn that Charles may have no choice but to take stronger action to draw a permanent line under the situation once and for all. The only question that remains now is whether Ferguson will accept that silence and stay hidden in the mountains, or whether the woman once known to the world as Fergie will decide that she has nothing left to lose and finally tell her story to the world.